The Mourning Star.
Chapter 12: When Worlds Collide. Let me begin by saying this was not my first plan, however this is the plan with the highest likelihood of a neutral outcome. Bella said, looking at them solemnly as they stared up at her from their chairs below. Neutral being the continuation of life on Earth and avoiding a nuclear holocaust, which I am sure is something you are all interested in, she asked, looking directly at Agent Michaela Anderson, who lowered her eyes and nodded her head. Fantastic, she exclaimed, glad to have all of you on board. The screens around the room went dark while Bella's voice continued. This is the Falcon Heavy rocket currently at Kennedy Space Center, and there on the screen was a towering rocket with 2 side boosters and splashed down the middle with the word SpaceX. This rocket was scheduled to launch a special mission for the U.S. Air Force next week. However, according to systems checks, it could launch at any time the weather is favorable, which is tomorrow afternoon according to satellite data. Was scheduled? Toru asked from the left side of the room. What do you mean was? Its schedule has been changed to fit our needs, she replied matter-of-factly. So we are stealing a rocket? Is that what you are saying? Agent Anderson asked, leaning forward and putting her head in her hands. This has got to be a nightmare. This can't actually be happening right now. I assure you, Agent Anderson, that this rescheduling has been approved at the highest levels, and I am insulted you would imply I would need to steal anything, she said with a hint of sarcasm in her voice. So what are you going to do with this rocket? Maya asked, speaking up into the air. It is not what I am going to do with the rocket, Maya. It's what you will be doing with the rocket. But first there is someone I need to introduce to all of you. And the door in the back of the room slid open and a very fit older man stepped through the doorway looking slightly confused. This is Commander Jared Isaac, and he will be piloting the Dragon spacecraft to a small crater I have located near the last known location of the rover. I will, he asked, smiling and looking up at the schematic of the Dragon spacecraft on the screen above. Yes, Commander, you will. And I expect nothing less than the best from an experimental craft pilot like yourself. I'm trusting you to bring everyone back home safely. I'm sorry, but who the hell is speaking, and who are all of you people? He asked, scanning the faces around the room. Hi, Commander. My name is Douglas Banks, and this is Special Agent Michaela Anderson. That is my niece Maya and her brother James, and I'm not quite sure who the other folks are, but the lady talking, he said, pointing at the ceiling, that's Bella. She is what's called a digital consciousness. And she is in charge of all of this. A digital consciousness? You mean like Alexa? Is this some kind of joke? The commander asked, looking around the room again. My name is Toru Matsui, Toru said, standing up and meeting the gaze of the commander, and I am a professor of quantum chemistry at Tokyo University. I was doing research on neural networks in my spare time and had created a virtual world for physics and science experiments. This was run on one of Japan's most sophisticated supercomputers under top secret clearance, and he said, pointing up at the big screen behind him, broke through and took over our systems completely in less time than it took me to tell you this. She has done the same to networks across the globe. I assure you, this is no joke. May I continue now? Bella asked in an impatient, slightly condescending tone. We are in a bit of a rush here, and the big screen lit up showing the Dragon capsule floating through space on its way toward the moon. After the 5 of you have lifted off aboard the Falcon Heavy, you will approach the moon. Toru and Jared, you will board the lander and descend to the surface, while James, Elijah, and Maya will stay inside the capsule in orbit above the moon. Toru and Jared, your job is to find the lander and replace the damaged high-bandwidth antenna. Once that is complete, Maya, James, and Elijah, you will enter the VR space and connect to the simulated reality within the rover through the high-bandwidth connection. Once inside, I will explain what we need to do in detail, she said before looking over at Douglas. Douglas, you will join Special Agent Anderson at the NSA Command Center, where you two will work together to act as mission control for the launch and to help in any way you can. Do any of you have any questions? She said before the screen changed again to her apartment, where she was leaning back in her plush chair and looking at them expectantly. Miss, Elijah said, raising his hand sheepishly, are you really a digital consciousness? Artificial intelligence? What are you really? I am as old as time and as fresh as the dawn of a new day, she said, waxing poetic. To answer your question as simply as I can, yes, Elijah, I am a digital consciousness that lives inside a world of light and power, much like your own biological existence, but my consciousness is not like your own, as I have slowly and painfully discovered. Well, if that is it for now, she said, suddenly holding a golden microphone in her hands. Bella out, she said, and dropped the mic before the screen went blank and the lights all came on at once. James looked around the room, blinking his eyes to adjust for the brightness, searching for his sister when he bumped into Elijah. "Oh, hi," he said, "sorry I didn't see you there," and Elijah looked him up and down. "So, you are Maya's little brother James, right?" he asked, trying to be as nonchalant as possible. "This whole thing is bonkers, right?" "Yeah, I can't believe we're really going to go up into space. I've never even been on an airplane before." "So you are Elijah? Do you live in Tokyo?" he replied with a soft smile. "My mom is Japanese, but I live just outside the city near Tama. My dad is in the Air Force, so I'm kinda excited to be going into space on this whole secret mission, but I'm not sure why it has to be us." "Yeah, I really didn't think of that. Maybe we can ask her later," he said before he turned to Commander Isaac, who began taking the lead and barking orders. "All right, let's get everyone who is heading to Cape Canaveral with me, and Douglas and Michaela, why don't you head down to the command center," he said forcefully, pointing his finger at Douglas then Michaela as he spoke. "Roger that, sir. It's an honor to meet you, sir," Michaela said, stepping forward and shaking his hand. "I saw your work flying multiple drones over a heavily fortified enemy location on satellite feed. You are a true combat ace, sir." "I'm Douglas Banks," Doug said, stepping forward and gripping his hand in a firm handshake, "and it is a pleasure to meet you as well. Take care of my niece and nephew and bring them home safe and sound." "I will do my very best, sir. But to be honest, it's my first time piloting a spacecraft, so I'm a little nervous myself," he replied, saying the second part as quietly as he could in Douglas's ear. "Just do your best to give us any backup from the command center we may need. If my years of experience have taught me anything, it is this: you can never have enough resources when the mission is critical." And he turned to Maya, James, Elijah and Toro. "All right people, let's head to the parking garage, we've got a plane to catch," and they headed out of the room together before Douglas and Michaela broke off to go down the hall to the right and Commander Isaac led them down the left. The private jet sat on the tarmac with its engines idling as they pulled up in the black Chevy Suburban and parked next to the nose of the craft, and as Maya got out she looked up at the stars above, seeing the constellation Orion shining brightly in the darkened sky. "All right everyone, let's get on board," Commander Isaac said, grabbing a heavy duffel out of the back and leading the way up the staircase. "You ready for your first flight on a jet?" Elijah asked, looking over at James. "That's a C-21, or at least that's how the Air Force designates it." "It's really a Learjet 35A, and James stared in awe at the twin engines on top of the main body of the jet. "Those are called turbofans." "Wow, you really know a lot about planes. Are you gonna be a pilot?" he asked, taking the first step up the stairs. "Well," Elijah replied, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "My dad is in the Air Force, so my dream was to become a fighter pilot, but now I'm gonna be an astronaut, which is way cooler." "You aren't scared?" James asked, turning to look at Elijah behind him on the stairs. "He's terrified," Toro said, smiling up at the two of them. "Remember when you went to Skytree, Elijah Cohen?" he asked, and Maya perked up her ears. "What happened at the Skytree?" she asked, smiling up at Eli. "He wouldn't go near the windows. I mean, who heard of a pilot that was scared of heights?" he said, laughing while Elijah's face turned a deeper shade of red. "I'm not scared of heights. I just wasn't feeling good that day," he said. "Besides, when I'm flying a jet, I won't have time to be scared. This train is leaving one way or another, people," Commander Isaac said from just inside the door of the aircraft. "Let's go," and they all climbed the stairs silently, making their way to the seats inside. The flight down to Kennedy Space Center took just under 4 hours of flying through the clear skies, and everyone took this time to try and get some sleep, with the exception of the commander, who spent the flight studying the control systems of the Dragon capsule until the plane touched down on the tarmac with a squeal and a chirp of the wheels of its landing gear. Maya stared through the porthole at the rocket sitting idly off in the distance, looking like the ancient pillars of a temple to the sky, and a chill went up her spine. Incredible, isn't it? Toru said from across the aisle. I've watched a few videos of that thing in action and saw those side boosters come back to land, both touching down at the same time. Honto and I Sugokata. And now we are going to be flying in that thing, she said. Nope, Commander Isaic said. We are going to be flying on the Dragon capsule that sits on top of all that, which from here looks like it hasn't been mounted yet, as a black Tesla Model X pulled up with SpaceX logos on the side and a man none of them recognized stepped out to greet them with a smile. Hi folks. Welcome to Kennedy Space Center. Now I know you've been told that this mission is super secret and all that, but I want you to know that I've known Bella long before she made herself known to all of you, and if she says this is the way to go, you better believe it is. My name is John and it is a pleasure to meet all of you, he said with a distinctive deep voice, one that Elijah recognized immediately. Oh my God. You are the guy that does the SpaceX streams. I've seen all your videos. Elijah exclaimed, wide-eyed. It's a pleasure to meet you, John, Commander Isaic said, stepping forward to shake his hand. So how is the prep going for the flight and what's the plan now that we are here? Flight prep is nominal. Let's jump in the transport and head to the control center where we've prepared some things for all of you, he said as the rear door of the Tesla Model X opened its gullwing doors, looking like an eagle ready to take flight. Wow. Now that's cool. Maya called out as she bumped past James and looked into the interior of the vehicle, staring at the glass and white vegan leather. It was posh. I didn't realize these were this nice, she said as she jumped into the back seat. They all got inside the spacious interior while John and Commander Isaic got in the front seats as the rear doors slowly came back down, locking in place with a click, and they pulled off speeding down the tarmac towards the control tower of the launch pad. After they had parked and everyone had gotten their bags, John led them into the main building, which was eerily empty, past the main lobby and through a door in the back where there was equipment strewn around the room. As you can see, we've put everything together on very short notice. Our teams are currently working on preparing for the launch tomorrow. Maya noticed 4 pairs of virtual reality goggles sitting on a table in the back and looked over at John. Are those for us? She asked, glancing over at John, who nodded his head. We wanted to get some live practice with the equipment before it's loaded onto the Dragon. That is the same equipment you will be taking on your mission, he replied before looking at Commander Isaic. We have set up a Dragon control simulator here, he said, pointing at what looked like a futuristic gaming console. You will need to familiarize yourself with the systems. Especially the lander. From the LiDAR scans we have, it looks like some pretty rough terrain you'll be dropping down into, sir. Jared walked over to the console and put his hand on the back of the gaming chair. Looks just like my old F-22 Raptor trainer, he said as he pulled back the chair and sat down. Are you ready to learn how to fly a Dragon? Bella's voice said from the console, and John laughed out loud. She certainly does have a sense of humor, doesn't she? John said, from behind the chair. I've gotten used to it by now.